Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of NCompass Live. I am your host, Krista Burns, here at the Nebraska Library Commission. NCompass Live is the Commission's weekly online event where we cover any sort of activities that may be of interest to librarians across the state. We do these sessions every Wednesday mornings live at 10 a.m. Central Time, and they are recorded, so you can watch any of our recordings that we have done. We've got about 2.5 years now worth of them. So you can see those online and watch all of our recordings if 10 a.m. Wednesday mornings doesn't work for you. And we do a mixture of things. We do presentations, we have guest speakers, we do little mini web tours, training sessions, anything we can think of that we think you might be interested in. Once a month, on average, we do a tech talk, which is with Michael Sauers, who's sitting right next to me here,
Hello.
who is the Technology Innovation Librarian here at the Nebraska Library Commission. So he's got his little monthly thing where he talks about the tech that has come up in the past month, anything interesting or that you need to know about technology, vaguely technology related.
Sometimes more vague than others.
It varies between tech for the total tech dummy, which I am sometimes can be because I don't know how to build a computer and that kind of thing, but up to some more intense, in-depth stuff. So it has a whole range. This week, however, we're doing kind of a special session, tech-related. It depends on what we end up talking about an event that Michael and I both attended last Friday down in Kansas, and I will just actually hand over to you if you want to do your little.
And I'm thinking I need a new slide. I don't know.
Why? I like that one already?
No, I like it, but I've been using it for a while.
Oh.
So
you've got like 4 weeks to come up with another one.
Yeah. See. She says once a month, but that doesn't mean every 4 weeks.
No.
So,
we do mix it up a little.
Little early this time around.
And I do want to say, actually, I forgot because you
go right
mentioned
ahead.
Earlier. If you were with us last week, we did have some technical difficulties, and there was not an NCompass Live. Their entire system seemed to crash right on us as soon as we tried to start at 10 a.m. It wasn't us, from what we can tell. It was them. We were having a session last week on what's happening with genre headings for catalogers. Our cataloging librarian here at the Commission, Emily Nimsicon, was to present that last week, but due to GoToWebinar crashing on us, we didn't hold it, but it has been rescheduled for August 3rd. So if you were interested in learning about what's going on with genre headings, Library of Congress genre headings, check that out on our rescheduled date 2 weeks from now. Anyway,
Great.
Back to you.
All right.
Yes.
Well, that's technology related.
It totally is.
The technology failed
Yes,
completely. And spectacularly, I might add. So
everything crashed. Everybody crashed. It was amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, welcome to this month's Tech Talk. It is it's still June, right? June 2011.
Yeah.
And no, it's July.
No, it's July.
It's July, as it says on my screen. It's July.
Didn't you remember all the fireworks?
Yes. Oh yeah. I remember the fireworks. Anyway, so last week on Friday, Krista and I took a little road trip, and we headed down to Manhattan, Kansas, the Little Apple, and I'm not making that up, and hung out for the day at Hale Library on the Kansas State University campus for the Kansas Library Camp. We've done a couple of library camps here in Nebraska, and in fact, the original one was inspired by the first Library Camp Kansas, which I and another one of our coworkers went to back in 2008 in Manhattan. And so last week we went down to, I believe, was their third or fourth one, and attended for the day and had a lot of interesting discussions and sessions. And so what we figured we would do is we would kind of rope in some folks who were also there to just kind of have a conversation with us about what was talked about, what was learned, what new things they heard about, anything going on like that. Krista and I both attended completely different sessions for most of the day. And I know we have a couple of, at least 2 out of the 4 people we'll have on this call led some sessions. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to turn on the microphones for our other 2 folks here and have them introduce themselves. Why don't we go ladies first? Heather, you're on the line.
Hi. Let's see if I can do this without coughing. My name is Heather Braum. My name is Heather Baram, and I'm the technology librarian at the Northeast Kansas Library System, and I apologize for my voice. I'm still sick, and I was sick last week at the unconference, so we'll see how this goes.
We were hoping you'd feel better by now.
Really? It's been so long.
I'm on the mend.
Okay, all right, that's good. And we also have Royce Kitts on the line. Royce, you there?
Yes, I am. My name is Royce Kitts, and I work at the Mabee Library at Washburn University in Topeka, Kansas. And I also am the president of the Kansas Library Association.
Yes.
Oh, hey, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he just
Just
Kind
recently.
of a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll throw in here, we're looking for somebody to run for that position for the Nebraska Library Association right now. So luckily you two are off the hook.
wrong state.
Good.
So if you're interested, get a hold of NLA. Anyways, Chris and I went to a bunch of things.
Well, I was wondering, did you want to talk about like why, what it is?
Well, that's what I was.
And why we chose to go to it. Okay.
That's where I was going.
Sorry.
Thank you. That's
Do
all
your
right.
thing, never mind.
We were. Heather, you were peripherally involved in planning this event. Is that correct?
Actually, Royce and I both were.
Oh, you both were. Okay. Well, would for the benefit of those in the audience who may not be familiar with the concept of the unconference or the Kansas one library camp in particular, could one of you give us kind of a 2-minute, what the heck was this thing?
Sure. The last one that we had in Kansas was back in 2009, and the planners that were involved back then kind of kept emailing, and a few more people, including me, got roped in. Royce, I don't know, were you in on the first 2 planning sessions?
I was in from the beginning. Yeah.
Okay. And so anyway, so we emailed since 2009 trying to get another one organized, and the one in 2010 just never materialized. And so I think late last year, early this year, we started emailing back and forth pretty frequently, wanting to get another one off the ground. And finally, February, March was like, one's going to happen. Let's do it in the summer. We threw out a doodle poll, just an online web poll, to see if people would respond. What date worked best for you? July 15th is what came out from, I think, the 10-15 people who responded. We set that date. Jason Coleman, who is at the Hale Library at K-State, asked the leadership there if we could once again use their space, because while Manhattan's not completely central to the state, it's about as central as it can get for that large of a meeting space, with Wi-Fi and rooms set up already and everything that we needed to make this easy. And so they said yes. We got registration going and the word out, and it happened. And lots of emails went back and forth.
You've been there, done that.
Yeah.
So Royce, let's give you a chance here. What an unconference, this library camp? What was it? What did we do there? How did it work?
Well, one of the things that I would really like to mention, coming from the more traditional conference planning standpoint of putting together the Kansas Library Conference, is that you're talking about, a very shortened planning process for an unconference. Even though it took us a little bit of time to kind of gather the people together to get it done, with a more traditional conference, you're talking about having to sign contracts, having to get people on board, having to come up with printed programs, and all this kind of thing. And with the beauty of the unconference is able to really get it off the ground and going really quickly. And enough can't be said about the fine work that Jason Coleman put together and for this. As in terms of how the day goes, is that kind of what you're looking for right now?
Yeah.
Is kind of how that day progressed? The beauty of it is it's kind of one of those, you show up and it's this great unknown there for about 10 minutes, and you're kind of, in fact, even the people who are the narrators, the host for the event, were kind of pulled in last minute because we had the person who was going to do it was a little sick. And it starts off, with taping up some paper on the wall and starting to work the room to get ideas about what people would really like to learn about. The traditional conference model putting in your proposals a year ahead of time is thrown out the window, and it's really about what is on the cusp of knowledge that people want to obtain at that moment. So we had an opportunity. The thing that I enjoyed most was being able to talk to people who are just now learning about Google Plus, and being able to sit into a room and really start to figure out, all the intricacies of that social networking tool. So kind of, we start with that. We moved into basically setting the agenda, working through some lightning rounds, which I always think are, lightning rounds are one of those things. Sometimes they can be really great, and then sometimes they seem a little stilted. And I think in this scenario, what we had was learning about some really great tools real quickly, one right after another. It's definitely something where you're taking notes furiously throughout the day because you are learning so much, and so many different people. That traditional conference model of someone standing in front of you and almost talking at you has been turned upside down. It becomes a conversation. It becomes something where even though there's like a room host, everyone feels a certain sense, a certain obligation to jump in and move the dialogue forward. And when we finally set up those sessions, the beauty of it is you have these different rooms set up, and if you're going with a couple of different people, it's definitely a divide and conquer type scenario. For me, I went to sessions that appealed specifically to me, and that's the beauty of it too. You're in a room with so many like-minded individuals. It's not a question of, will any of this matter to me? It really becomes one of weighting the different options that are available. And so for me, I did one that was on economics, because that's something that I'm really concerned about, is the economics of the library, the feasible economics of libraries, and advocacy. And then ended my day on Google Plus, kind of what I considered my fun moment of the day.
Oh, yeah.
And you get together and you share notes, and the beauty of it too, you're showing this document here, this agenda. This agenda is written as you're there. It's on this big screen. You're working through it right then. You're in rooms where people are taking live notes. It becomes something where you're not waiting for people to send in, their PowerPoint or asking presenters about their PowerPoint. It's the knowledge that's created is immediate, and you have it right then. So
yep.
That's kind of my spiel on why I think NCompass.
No, that was wonderful. I like NConferences. Sometimes even in the major conferences, we joke about LobbyCon, where the conversations that happen outside of the official presentations. It's not that you don't learn anything from those prepared sessions, but you always learn something else from just sitting down and talking to people and letting the conversation kind of go where it goes from the group, as opposed to someone in particular, and then maybe some Q&A at the end of that.
And that's where some of the, I think.
Well, and I was
going to say, some of the reason people like the unconferences and are drawn for them is because they've had that experience of, I attended whatever conference, and sure, the sessions are good. I learned some stuff, got some good notes, but I got the most out of when I was in the lobby talking to these 3 other library directors, and we all got together and talked about this issue of ours, and that's where I really got the most useful stuff to take back with me. And unconference is the same thing. A bunch of people in a room talking about whatever the topic is. And the topics are totally on target. As Royce was saying, you don't have to think a year from ago, what do I want to talk about? A year later, your topic, unfortunately, may not be relevant. These topics are picked that morning. Originally, when this agenda was first brought up in the beginning of the morning, all those sessions were blank. Breakout session 1, blanks. Breakout session 2, blanks. So it's whatever is happening right then and there is what people talk about. And what I liked about it, too, going into the rooms was you did not have someone who did, here's my presentation on EContent and what it is and what you should do. In the sessions I went to, which were Rethinking Lifelong Learning and what else did I do? TED Talks and then Outreach. It all it started out with was maybe a sentence or two of, well, this is why, of the room host saying, this is why I wanted to talk about this topic because I knew this, that, and the other thing. What do all you guys have to say? So it started with a question to the room. Mm-hmm. And then that's how it went. So it wasn't like, here is me telling you what I think. It's, what do you guys all think about this topic that I was wondering about? Mm-hmm. And I thought that was so cool that it starts out with a question to the group.
Yeah, and Krista, to build on that, you know, since 2 of those were the sessions I helped lead, you know, as I've been presenting over the last few years, what I have found to be most valuable is not when I'm standing up in front of the room pushing out my knowledge to the group, but when you have that conversation back and forth between the attendees and the presenter, because everybody has knowledge to contribute. And if you are learning together, you are more apt to walk away having everyone learn something, not just, oh, here's my notes, and they go in the trash, or you find them 5 years later when you move. And so that's, you know, another powerful part about the unconference is that everybody learns together and contributes. I think Krista or Roy said that contributes to the body of knowledge, and you create more knowledge. So.
Well, great. So if we haven't convinced everybody listening to attend an unconference, I'm not sure we're going to be able to, you know.
I do know that it said at the end of this one, or it might even say on the website, that Kansas is planning for another one next year, right? That's already being thought about. Yes. So if you want to take a couple-hour drive down, it's for us here in Lincoln, it was a little over 2 hours. A little over 2 hours, yeah. We went down in the morning, did the day, came back that same night. So just a thought.
Yep.
Keep your eyes open for that.
And sometimes too, it's we've had 1 or 2 folks from outside of Nebraska attend the Nebraska ones, and sometimes it's just that kind of external thought process. So it's not just all people from one organization or institution or state in this case, all talking about each other, and which leads me into, I kind of want to get a sense of most of us have mentioned what we attended, and I kind of want to maybe kind of go through each one of those and get kind of the highlights. Maybe, and so leading into that, I'm going to take the first crack at that because I attended the EContent session there in the first breakout session, and it's called EContent, and the concept was basically what's going on with ebooks, and I expected to go into this session talking about, okay, what's the difference between a Nook and a Kindle? I mean, that's kind of what I expected, but that's not what I got. And actually what I got was a lot more interesting because it started out for those of you not in Kansas, I'm sure, Heather and Royce, you've heard more than enough about this. You guys are looking to move away from overdrive to 3M. And so somebody from your state library there was kind of there talking about what was going on. There were some contractual issues going on. There's negotiations with 3M and talking to publishers and trying to move the content from overdrive to 3M. And I don't want to get into all the picky details of that, but just I had heard about that, and then to actually kind of, you know, head out your direction and hear a lot more about what was going on with that was very interesting. But then the room kind of changed too into a discussion of libraries and what services we provide and the quality of those services, and you know, because we can't not offer ebooks, but a lot of people have trouble getting those ebooks to work. Once you get them to work, they work fine, but it's getting over that hump with all the technical support and all those other things. And so that session I was in, and all of these, I don't think we've mentioned, this page we're looking at will link to all of this. The official notes and anybody else's notes that may have been contributed are all available. So if this, you know, discussion sounds interesting to you, you can click on EContent there and on the screen, and it will bring up the notes that we're taking during the talk, the conversation. I think I've just lost my train of thought, but it was just kind of an interesting debate amongst librarians, kind of the larger issues surrounding ebooks and e-readers and the services we provide to our patrons and how well we do that, how well they work, that sort of thing. And
I think your point was I went in thinking it was one thing and it ended up being another.
In fact, it ended up being way better than I thought it would be, because I thought, you know, I kind of know the difference between a Nook and a Kindle at this point, but I love having that intellectual big picture debate with people about how do we do things as kind of a profession, as opposed to, you know, the nitty-gritty's fun, but sometimes you need to have those big conversations. Royce, which one did you attend in breakout session number 1?
I attended one. The first one I attended was on, it had the dubious title of Dire Economic Times for Libraries. And basically what it like you said, this discussion leveled upon itself and became something that it didn't initially appear that it was going to be. And we started talking off, you don't have to be the smartest person in the world to understand that there's some serious financial issues ahead for libraries. We started focusing in more on funding mechanisms for databases, and exactly how do you weigh the 3 very separate needs that we have for databases here in Kansas, from school libraries to public libraries to academic libraries. We recently had sent out on the state library list a ranking of the top databases that we had for schools, public libraries, and academic libraries, and which ones they thought were the most important. And it was completely across the board different. No one had the same number 1 ranked, as like in the public libraries, Chilton's was one that was cited as being, number 1. It was on the bottom list of the academics. It was not to be found on the school libraries. So it became a discussion of how do you balance the needs of so many different types of libraries. And that was a discussion where, we really didn't have a really good answer. It became one of how do you broker deals with database vendors, knowing that you're really only going to be targeting a very specific portion of libraries in your state. And that was kind of the gist of that. It's hard to believe that we were able to talk for so long just on databases, but it's something that's really crucial. It's a significant chunk of money for specifically my library, but for any library that has been relying upon this model of the state library providing statewide access to databases. And then with the funding cuts that have happened to the state library and to the various funding entities that we've come to rely on for databases. And that was basically, the summation of that event.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was going to ask what solutions you came up with, but it sounds like you didn't.
Sometimes
well,
you don't.
the solutions we came up with were basically, it's something where we have to make sure that we keep the conversation going. And if you do have some kind of passion or compassion for the decisions that are made concerning these issues, that you need to make sure that you're heard and that you stand up and that you talk about it. Don't let others make decisions for you that are going to affect your livelihood as a library without becoming a part of that conversation.
Great point. Yeah. We'll give Heather's a voice a rest for just a little longer. We'll go to Krista next. Although Heather, you led the session, I believe Krista attended in the first breakout.
Yes,
which,
yeah.
Which,
and the first 1 and 2, and it wasn't on purpose. I wasn't following Heather around. That just happened to be the topics that I thought would be interesting to me, and I wanted to learn more about, or talk about, or hear more about. Yeah, it was the title, Rethinking Lifelong Learning. Basically trying to figure out, and Heather did start out talking about, and now these are my notes that I took. I did write a blog post on my blog, which I haven't blogged in a while, but I did, where I wrote down my notes. So this will be, my, I don't know.
Your interpretation.
Interpretation, yeah. About, and it was an interesting discussion too, talking about how libraries are like educational institutions, but we cover everyone from all ages, 0 to the grave. Rather than just traditional education, which just covers those your traditional school age years. And how do we help all of these people at all different types of learning levels? I mean, the little kids, but then you've got the stereotypical teens, younger teenage people who do all that multitasking that everyone talks about, which I also do myself. And they want to learn in little short quick bits, but then older people who are used to how they learned in school, a teacher sits in front of you and speaks for an hour and you learn things in a slower, more deliberate way. all of these kind of people come into us at the library, and how the heck do we figure out what to do with them? Because we have to know everything. We have to know how to teach all of these types of learners, because that's who we've got coming in. So no, it was a very interesting discussion. Lots of good ideas about what to do came up, and I've got the notes on my page, and there's notes I know on the website too, so I'm not going to mention every single thing because there was a lot on this one. Interesting thing that I did catch was in the Salina Public Library in Kansas has a program called CLASS, Community Learning and Skill Sharing, where the public library actually does classes similar to what you would have in a university or college, semester-long classes, not just a come in one day and learn how to crochet, but multiple sessions over a week's time, and some you pay for them and everything. But I thought that was a very interesting, different way of a library presenting the programs that they do as similar to what people are familiar with in a semester-long class in school, but doing it for the library things. Mm-hmm. Yoga was one thing they mentioned. I can't remember all the other ones. But it's all up on their website that I linked to, the Salina Public Library. Very interesting.
And didn't you mention to me another library that kind of went the opposite direction? They stopped doing things? Was that? I think over lunch. I'm catching her off guard here.
It was Johnson County Public Library has stopped doing all forms of adult programming.
That's what it is. Yeah, it was very interesting. And this was the thing that came up. Yeah, and talking about who do you serve? Yeah, that one library said we have stopped them all because they did actually focus. They had a strategic plan that said we don't need to serve this area. They're being covered by other things in the city. And then someone else piped up, and I'm not sure I think it might have been from the Salina Public Library, but said, oh my God, we have even more that we have to do. And that's part of the good and bad of libraries and towns. Everybody's going to be different. One town is going to say, oh my God, there's nothing here for the adults, so we have to do this programming. And another one's going to say, there's so much, we shouldn't have to do it. We've got to focus where we want to. But yeah, so some libraries are going all different directions.
Yeah, well, I guess the moral would be, if it's not needed, don't be afraid to not do it. Maybe. That's,
Yeah, that it's okay to get away from, let some things go. And that's something that, I think, Heather, you mentioned, talking about the Alice of New Librarianship, this new book that's out. Knowing your community and serving their needs. Let go of some of the traditional things you've just always done because you've always done it. You might not need to anymore, and that's okay. But figure out what you do need to do in your community. Don't just do something because you see someone else doing it. Salina Public Library found out they needed this semester-long class thing, and they did it. And that's cool. Take a look at it, see if it works for you. But don't just do it because they are. Figure out what your town and your community needs and do what they need.
Heather, did you want to add anything about that session?
No, I think Krista covered it. Definitely take a look at the notes here because I know Krista had some of the links, but there's other links mentioned, including there's a new NPR interview that came out, I think, the day before the unconference about teaching the net generation. And it's 30 minutes long, but I highly, highly recommend it. I took the time to listen to it, and it's definitely worth your time because that's our future. Those kids are our future in the library. They're going to be who's keeping us around, hopefully, for years to come.
Insert joke about being worried about that here. Okay, so with that, maybe we'll come back to battle decks for those that are unaware. We will talk about battle decks by the end of this because we're going to be doing battle decks at our state conference this year. So I want to fill that in. Yeah. But Heather, why don't we stick with you? Let's jump to after lunch with breakout session number 2. You and Krista both attended the TED Talk session, but we'll give you first shot at that one this time around.
Okay. I led a discussion about TED Talks and kind of how could they maybe be used in your library and your community. And surprisingly, I guess, or maybe not surprisingly, a lot of people still had not heard of them or were not very aware of the mission of TED. Maybe they had seen a video or two. And so we actually ended up spending a lot more time talking about what TED was and what the purpose of it, the purpose and the history behind it was, and the different types that are out there. And
so
I don't know if I can do this in a minute.
Well, yeah. So if I may interrupt, what is TED? I mean, I know.
I was just getting there. If I can do this in just a quick minute, TED stands for technology, entertainment, and design. And their mission is ideas worth spreading. That's basically their tagline. And what it is, it's a website, www.ted.com, and they post videos of presentations given at the originally the International TED Conference that happens each year, where people pay thousands of dollars to come and interact and hear from basically the movers and shakers around the world. Al Gore, Bill Gates, scientists, entertainers, musicians, anybody you can think of probably has at one time or another spoken at this conference. But 5-6 years ago, they started posting the videos online for free for anybody to see. And TED has exploded on the people that is now reaching. People use the videos to inspire at meetings, to learn, to spark conversations. There are lots of different ways that they can be used, and TED has then moved on forward to, again, trying to figure out how to explain this, where local events happen. People are locally organizing events in their communities around the world where they bring in speakers from the community to talk about what they're doing, either in their community or around the world on projects. And I've actually had the opportunity to go to one in person in Oklahoma City, and it is by far one of the highlights of my life. It changed me, just hearing inspirational people, you know, a guy talking about, here's how I helped capture Saddam Hussein, and oh, by the way, my group didn't fire a single bullet along the way. You know, something like that, and how he did it by placing himself in the people he was talking to in their shoes. You know, you can't help but walk away changed from those kinds of events. And so what the conversation then turned to, and Krista could probably talk more about this, but you know, how could we use this in our communities, in our libraries, to inspire our patrons, inspire our communities? And I know K-State may look at embedding either the TED videos or recording their own community members about the projects that they're working on to inspire the K-State community. That could happen. Krista, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, it did. It was a lot about what are TED Talks. We looked at the website, the different things on there, and actually showed one of them during the session, just to give people an idea of the kind of things that get talked about. I think it was, and I didn't look around the room, but it was about a half and half of people who had heard of them and watched them and who hadn't. The people who did have their favorites.
Mm-hmm. I have my favorites.
Which I think in the notes that Buffy Hamilton did, she tried to write link to or note which they were. I had trouble thinking of favorites because I've watched so many of them. I follow them on Facebook and on Twitter, so I see a lot of them, but a few did pop out in my mind. But yeah, people are talking about, well, what do you mean by use them in the library? Do you mean just have an event where you show a video that's up there? Do you mean do our own thing? And really the answer was yes.
Yes.
Whichever you think would work. I mean, these are free out there for everyone to watch. From what we can see from looking at their terms of service, there's nothing, only if you are trying to run your own local event, you have to worry about licensing it and worrying about that kind of thing. But as far as probably just showing it somewhere, we couldn't see anything that said, there's nothing that really says.
Right. Well, I think if you want to hold an event where you use the TED brand,
yes,
you call it, for example, TEDx is the local ones, and there was you went to Oklahoma City, you said, yes. Heather. There was a TEDx yes. Omaha last year, and there's going to be another one this year. I went to last year's. Then you have to go through some approval process and whatever. But if you just wanted to say, hey, come to the library, we're going to show a bunch of TED videos, I think you can get that. That's not a problem. And I just watched 2 last night. I watch these things constantly. And
they come up on all sorts of different topics. You never know what they're going to be. You see they have them categorized here. They're rated by the people who watch them, different topics and everything. So it's very interesting, yeah. So we got a lot of ideas going and churning about what could we do with this. And could we do it ourselves, do a TEDx thing, which does take a little more work, the licensing, but doing a version of a TED event, but just your own, saying let's use TED as a model, sort of get people together to talk about something inspiring in our local town, in our community, and then afterwards have a discussion about it. That's really the theme of how these things work when you do the local events.
And wasn't there just a TEDx Librarians in Toronto?
Yes, there was.
Yes.
There was a librarian themed one. Totally, yes.
So my favorite one is the woman who the brain scientist who had a stroke. So
That's the one I mentioned as my favorite.
She was able to analyze her own stroke as she was having it, but during her presentation, she actually brought a brain out onto the stage.
Yes,
and
an actual brain.
So anyways, it's in there. So cool. Okay. Royce, which one did you attend in Breakout 2?
The one that I attended was on Advocacy, and it was actually the room host was Gail Santee from the Central Kansas Library Systems, who happens to be the governmental affairs chair for the Kansas Library Association. And this session basically turned into how do you tell your library story, and how do you get that story out to the people that need to hear it. So we talked a lot about what are the things that your library does that you think people need to hear about so that they become effective supporters of the library, but then also roping in people from the community to become advocates for your library, kind of getting away from that idea that the library director always has to be the one who goes out and advocates for either finances or support for the library. And even further away from the idea of trustees or friends of the library, and getting people I hate to say normal people, but people not related to the library in one of those type of relationships to speak about the library. The importance of having city councilmen, legislators, the police chief, those different type of peoples coming in to speak about the efficacy of your library in the community. And, just kind of the ideas of how you can bring technology into that picture, how you can flesh out marketing. There's a couple people there who, most of the people in our room were actually from the academic side of things. So it became also this idea of not just speaking to the community as a whole, but also kind of speaking to other departments and other schools on your campus about what the library provides for that student experience, for the faculty experience.
Oh, great. Actually, for some reason, I kind of did a double take when you said a lot of the people there were academics, and I don't know, maybe because I just focus on public so much and the advocacy and the budgets, maybe I'm biased towards publics, but yeah, academics have the same issues. They need to get their budgets and they need to get the departments and the schools involved. That's a very good point.
Well, a key thing to remember about academic budgets that are different than public library budgets, a public library budget gets prepared and then presented to an organization, and then, depending on what state you're in, that budget either gets tweaked a little bit or it gets passed. But you have a direct correlation between the people who work at the library and the numbers that are on the budget and then the money that's allocated to you. It's my understanding, I haven't only been in this job for a couple of months now and have spoken to the people at the Kansas State Libraries, it's almost like this budget from above idea where the money is allocated to you and then you make it work.
Yep.
So in that environment, it becomes very critical for people to understand way ahead of time the value that the library on campus has in the campus experience, because you want people going into these budget meetings with those ideas.
Right. Cool. Then I led the augmented reality QR code session. This was one that was one of the two that were actually repeated because enough people were interested. So I don't know exactly what was discussed in the first one. This one was actually kind of interesting. Krista kind of said earlier that nobody goes into these with a presentation. Well, I didn't go into this with a presentation, but I did happen to already have a QR codes presentation available online, so I brought that up on the screen. Just because I knew there were some illustrations of how the technology worked in my presentation. And people came in and were like, "You have a presentation?" I was like, "No, I did not prepare for this. I did not give them my presentation." But I did kind of use those slides to make sure everybody in the room was kind of on the same level. And this one, for, again, kind of a real quick, QR codes are those wonderful two barcodes. This is a QR code that we have on the screen right here that would, you use a smartphone to scan that, and then it can do everything from provide someone's contact information to provide a link to a URL, to send an SMS message. The possibilities are not endless, but they're close anyways. And how could we use those in the library? This kind of also got tagged up or paired up with the augmented reality concept, which is also smartphone based. I think that's why they ended up kind of getting put together there. And that one's a little more complex, but the idea is, and I guess the best way to explain it is just to use an example. Say you are walking around New York City, and you hold up your phone so that the camera is looking at the Flatiron Building, for example. Through a combination of your data connection on your phone and GPS, the augmented reality software figures out where you are, and based on where you are and what you're looking at, figures out what you're looking at, the Flatiron Building in New York City, and then adds a layer of information to your screen explaining what you're looking at. That would be kind of a simple example. So it might link you to a Wikipedia article. It might say the building's this tall, it was built in that time frame, things like that. And it's a really cool technology, but I joked in the session that most of us in Kansas and Nebraska have not had an opportunity to take advantage of this technology because we're in Kansas and Nebraska. We're not in New York City. We're not in Denver. We're not in San Francisco. We're not in the locations with lots of data. Now, all joking aside, it was Jason from K-State who said that a group on their campus did actually create an application of this on campus. So you can actually walk around campus and basically do what I described doing in New York City. And so it was really kind of a cool little demo of that. It's fun trying to show something on a smartphone to a room of 25 people because it's only so big.
Yeah.
A little hard to demo that way. But basically, it almost, once we got past the making sure everybody had a grasp of the concepts, it kind of came down to how can we use these in the library. And people were coming up with examples of scanning it so it can tell you where you need to go in the building to go find the book you're looking for was kind of one example, or just linking to the database. And people are mentioning they're starting to see them in magazines and on the water bill, and they're starting to show up. And the catch being you need a smartphone to take advantage of it. We did get into, was there a kind of desktop equivalent so you could say hold it up in front of a webcam? And Richard from one of the other library systems in Kansas said he found one, but couldn't actually get it to work. So it is still
They're
pretty much
figure it out.
smartphone based. Yeah. Do either of you, Royce or Heather, know of any interesting uses of QR codes or are doing anything with those?
Well, kind of how we're using them here at the Mabee Library is kind of along the same lines that you've mentioned, taking you to library help pages. We've been weeding some of our serials from the library, and one of the ways that you can supplement, the hesitancy some people have for that is putting up a little sign with a QR code and telling you where this journal can be found. I have one outside of my office door. So if you walk by and I'm not there, you can download that real quick and get my email address, my phone number, my office hours. Because, I have a whiteboard outside, but who knows what someone's going to write on it when I'm not here. So a QR code seems to be a little bit safer. But I've noticed just personally in my own life, one of the really neat things that I like about it is when I'm buying flowers for the yard, Home Depot has little QR codes on all the plants. So you can go real quickly and look and see what kind of weather conditions are appropriate for those plants.
Oh, nice.
And how they work together.
Yeah.
I just posted a picture that I was at a grocery store and they had like rosemary plants or something and they had a QR code on it. I took a picture of it, but I never actually scanned the code to see what it told me.
You don't even know what they're telling you.
But I've seen that. So cool. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know Home Depot was doing that. That's interesting.
And real estate agents are using it a lot here in Manhattan. So you'll drive by and you'll see a for sale sign, and there'll be a large QR code there where it'll take you to the what they call the MLS listing for the house that describes all the information and the price for it.
Yeah, cool. And I think next time I'm in town, I'm just going to have to swing by to write something on your whiteboard. That's just tempting now.
It is.
Hide the
All right.
pen.
Okay, session 3. Krista, we'll start with you this time. What did you do in breakout session 3?
Yes, I went to the one that says outreach, and it says outreach/geek, which I assumed is another one. It wasn't what I thought. I assumed meant using that Geek Library campaign. What do you geek? That OCLC/Gates Foundation came up with. You see that kind of red and black theme stuff. That's not what happened. But it was okay. The librarian leading it, Regina, I don't know where she is from. You guys might know. She's from the university there. Was concerned about government documents, actually, which kind of threw me for a loop. But the fact that the university and state libraries have government documents, and do the public library staff know this? And do their patrons know this? The patrons come to them, ask them a question that could be answered with a government document. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Everyone in the room seemed to be totally aware of, like, oh yes, of course, and we tell them they should come to you, and we send them there and do that. But then I got more into discussion of, and my notes are really short in this one because I got really into listening, which kind of happens. So my notes are very. Basically, there are university students who come to some of these colleges from small towns or just from a different type of town and are very intimidated and overwhelmed by the big university library and the big university librarians. And so out of comfort, they go to the public library. And the public librarians have to figure out either, do I help this person? How do I help this person? I really need to get them to where they really should be, the university library. And how can the universities and the public libraries work more together to make sure that these people get where they need to be? That the public library patrons, just normal patrons, realize, you know what, the university has stuff that you can access. There are certain stuff there that's public, state government documents, federal government documents, you can use them. And then the second thing of the students who don't know or are afraid, intimidated to go to the university library, coming to the public library, trying to push them in the right way. It's okay. You're supposed to go there. They're very nice people. Really, I know them. So just more of a discussion about how you what can you possibly do to work together to help the students and the patrons and get where they need to be for the information they really need to be using. I mean, some of these poor students, they just come to the public library because that's what they know. And because their school library, possibly like elementary or high school, was not, this is sometimes not the best, and their public was better. And it's really sometimes hard to push them in the right direction.
Sure. And
that maybe if the university and the public librarians could meet more about this kind of thing and work together on it, they both know where the people need to be, but that somehow that could help.
So you want us to talk to each other is what you're saying?
Apparently, yes.
Okay. Just checking. Bryce, do you guys have any relationship with your local public library?
We do. One of the things that here in Topeka, Kansas, we have the Topeka Shawnee County Public Library.
We know them well.
And there's a variety of things that we do. One of the, just kind of thinking right off the top of my head, something I saw yesterday is, like for instance, books that we withdraw from the Maybe Library here on campus. We actually box those up and send them over to the Topeka Library for their book sale. So there's that kind of relationship. Yeah. We've also entered into discussions on early childhood literacy and how we can get those skill sets out to people who are working in that field. One of the things that we have here at my library is a curriculum resource center that I'm kind of in charge of, and what it does is provide learning and technology materials to Kansas residents and to homeschoolers and those kinds of things. And we partner with the Topeka Library in that we've kind of shifted the idea of early childhood literacy to something that they have a much greater skill set towards, and that they're better able to meet the needs of those people while we can concentrate on students who are a little bit older.
Cool. All right. And I know Royce and I both attended Google+. I'm going to hold that one off just another minute. Heather, which one did you attend? Well, you ran Book Talk. There we go.
Yeah. And it kind of was a wash. I think people were interested in some of the other topics, and it was a good conversation, but nothing earth-shattering to reveal here. So
And that
go on for the sake of time. Yeah, and that can happen. That's absolutely right.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So that happens. It's an unconference. Sounds like a good idea first thing in the morning, and that is. As with any conference, when you've got 5 different sessions to choose from
it's hard, yeah.
at one time, it is really sometimes hard to, say, yeah, I'm interested in that, but this one really applies to my job, so I really have to go to that one. All right, Google+. Well, here's what I'm going to do with Google+. I'm going to, Krista mentioned to me before the show that you've got a couple dates open in August.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do a whole session on Google+.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
volunteer, so I just made her day.
Yay.
So Royce and I were both there. I have my opinions. I will say I'll just briefly introduce it by saying that Google+ is Google's new social network that in theory would be a competitor, if not replacement, to Facebook. It is technically at the moment still only invite only.
I think it still is.
Although I have invites, so
Yeah.
if you know how to email
It's
me,
invite only, but
I can invite
people
you.
have invites now. They can
I've never been the biggest Facebook fan myself, so I'm really liking Google Plus for various reasons. Royce, what do you want to add to that?
Well, I would say that whereas Facebook underlines the social and social networking, Google Plus for me kind of underlines the networking part of social networking. Right at this point, we're still kind of in this, hey, it's Google Plus
Yes.
kind of phase. And I think that happens with kind of the invite atmosphere of it. You're kind of bumping into a lot of librarians. So for me, it's kind of being built almost more of as a professional tool because I don't have a lot of family members on there. And I think that it's not just in this initial stage, it's not, is it Google Plus or is it Facebook? I'm looking at getting more back to this idea of Facebook being immediate friends and family, and then letting Google Plus kind of serve that professional role with the chat interface, with the video conferencing that it has in it. But, you know, one of the things that I've really enjoyed so far is just this idea of being able to be selective about who gets to see certain things that I've written. And you know, the thing with Facebook, you get enough people on there, and eventually you get to this control state where you're like, I kind of want to write that, but I don't want to write that to all 400 people that I have friends.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit more control over what you say.
Yeah, that's the for those not familiar or haven't seen any of the news or played yet, one of the central tenets of Google Plus is this concept of circles, where to keep it simple, you create a circle for friends, you create a circle for family, you create a circle for coworkers. I've got a circle for horror lovers of friends of mine who are interested in stuff about horror movies and horror books. And then when you share something, you can choose what group of people you share it to. And you can have, Krista's in friends and coworkers. She can be in multiple circles for me. And then people can follow the stuff you post publicly but not be in one of your circles. And but Krista does, unless I tell her, doesn't exactly know what circle she's in of mine. So if I have that circle called people who say interesting things but I find really annoying, I could say put Krista in there, but she wouldn't necessarily know I put her in a circle called that. No, not that I would do that to Krista. Maybe other people. But so like I said, sometime in August we'll do a kind of full session on this. It's still lacking features. There's no way to search it yet, really. There's a lot of what's being discussed on Google Plus is Google Plus.
That's the thing too. People, I think a lot of people are being preemptive about their, Facebook killer, or it's going to replace it. It's not done yet. That's part of the thing too. It still has features that are yet to be put in. So don't make your final decision yet. Go in and explore it, and wait for them to put in the stuff they're still putting in. So I think people need to,
to
realize that
right.
The people who say, oh, well, it doesn't do this, that, and the other thing, so meh.
Right.
Well, it doesn't do it yet. It's not a done product. It's not a done thing. So just wait and see. Yeah.
I just personally, having issues with Facebook, I'm there, but if you even find me on Facebook, it basically shouts at you that I've moved to Google Plus. I've kind of just made a conscious decision to say, I'm going to learn Google Plus. I'm going to work. This is kind of going to be the platform I'm going to work in. I'm going to see how it works. I'm going to, actively use it to learn it, as opposed to just kind of look at it, glance at it. So a couple weeks, we'll do something, a whole session on that.
Okay, look forward to that.
So we'll get that scheduled. We don't have a date yet. Okay, the only other thing we really didn't talk about here in this session is battle decks. And I'm trying to decide if I want to pick on Heather or not.
You can pick on me.
She and her and who are you partnered up with?
Liz Ray.
Yeah, okay. You and Liz, you won Battle Decks. What the heck is Battle Decks?
Battle Decks is basically PowerPoint karaoke. Is the best way I've heard it explained, in the quickest way. You have a set of slides, someone prepares slides ahead of time, and people compete, walk in the room without having ever seen the slides, and you have to basically put a presentation together in a set period of time. In our case, it was 10 slides in 4 minutes. And Liz and I decided ahead of time, when we found out this was going to happen, hey, if they don't mention you can't tag team, let's tag team. And so we did. And we got away with it. And actually, I will have to add that I found it to be a lot more fun playing off of somebody, because it adds another level of difficulty to it, because you don't know what that other person is going to say, and so you really have to get creative and play off of each other, and so it's even more fun. It is about humor and kind of making a fool of yourself in a lot of ways, which I know not everybody is comfortable with. But the biggest piece of advice I can say is just go with whatever enters your mind first. Just shut off your filter and throw it out there, because you never know what can happen, where you have slavery and marriage and you start talking about the Dewey Decimal System, and oh, maybe we can throw that away. So there's just one small example from what we did. I know there's video out there. I don't know if it's posted online yet, but our competitors were awesome. Everybody was great at doing this, and there actually was a sudden death over time where we tied with we tied with another guy, and so we each had 30 seconds to explain a slide, and we somehow came out on top. But that's Battle Decks in a minute or so.
Well, no, you said something very interesting to me, because I've done Battle Decks myself too, and I did it online, which was really, it was like a webinar version of Battle Decks. But I actually thought it would be easier if you had someone else to play off of, because you only had to talk for half the time. You actually thought it was harder?
Yes and no. I mean, you didn't have to talk the whole time, yes, but you can't anticipate what that other person is going to say. So not only do you not see the slides, but because you can't prepare ahead of time, you have to play off of each other. And if you know the person, which in this case I do know Liz, we presented together, so we do kind of have that interaction going on already. if you don't know the person or don't know them that well, it could fail very, very well. You could fall flat in your face because what you're saying is not coherent, doesn't go together.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
yeah, I can see it going both ways.
Yeah, yeah. If you don't know the person, that would definitely add a challenge. I figured you guys knew each other pretty well, so that's cool. But you earned it, so that was cool. So just to tie this one back to Nebraska, we will be on Thursday evening this year at annual conference be doing a Battle Decks session. And we've already got some people willing to put themselves out there to talk to a bunch of slides they've never seen before. But I think we're looking for 1 or 2 more people. So if you're interested, drop me a line. We've got some of us who will be putting together slides. We haven't decided if there will be video or not. I don't know. Kind of depends. But if you're interested, check them out. Just search Battle Decks on YouTube. There are a ton. They've done it 2 years in a row now at ALA. So in fact, we had last year's champion already on Jason Griffey did our Google Chrome laptop talk here. So, all right. Well, at this point, we're kind of running towards the end of our hour here. Heather and Royce, is there anything else you'd like to just mention that we didn't get to, wrap up thoughts about Library Camp Kansas this year? And Heather, let's go with you first.
I don't really have any wrap-up thoughts about the camp experience overall, but I did want to throw one more thing in about Battle Decks, is that if you really, you're trying to get your mind around, you're like, what is the point? How can, this help me in my job? Where it could help is it helps you present better, because you have to think on your feet, and, in presentations, as we all know, things come up. Crazy things happen. You get that question that comes out of left field. How do you handle that? How do you tie that back? And so that's what Battle Decks really can do and help you with, is it helps you think on your feet, which can only help you later on in many different situations. And you get lots of good laughs.
yeah, and I figure at this point, I'm not saying I'll never do it again, but I can honestly say I've done it before, so that's how I could bow out this time around. Been there, done that. Royce, how about you?
Well, I would just like to say in closing that if you're thinking about doing an unconference, do it. Just put it in place. Get some like-minded individuals who are willing to take that jump with you and make it happen. One of the things that I think that you should remember about when you decide to get involved in the unconference is don't worry about what is it going to be able to provide you. Go into it with the thought of, what am I going to be able to give back to the unconference? I think it's a wonderful experience, and I think it's anytime you get more than 2 people together, it's kind of an idea that can work. So I just encourage everyone to just start to get out there and make it happen.
That's a great point. Thank you for that. I mean, that is wonderful. All right. Well, Heather, Royce, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your Wednesday morning here to have this chat with us. I really appreciate it. And Heather, you even came back, so and you're ill, so you get like tons of points for this. You've now done it twice, and you didn't bow out for health reasons. So that's
I just want to say, for anyone who was looking at this agenda, we only talked about the sessions we attended, but there will be notes up here for all of these. Notes were taken during the sessions. You can go ahead and check them out on here on the website. We will link to it from the recording. There wasn't any videos done or audio done of the sessions, just in-person sessions, except for, as Heather said, apparently Battle Decks was recorded. I'm not sure where it is.
I know it was recorded. I saw the flip cam.
At some point will be available that you can go and watch these people. They have a wonderful time.
Although I think they were going to auction off the rights to destroy the video or something. I'm not sure about that.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks once again. We're going to go ahead and turn your mics back off. Nothing personal. And kind of wrap up from our end.
Yep, we just have a couple more things here.
Okay.
If you...
Okay, what would you like me to do?
Go to the Library Commission's website. There's one thing here for Nebraska librarians that we want to promote to you to let you know that is coming up that is technology related. We go down in the reminders. thingy. You got to scroll down a little bit. The third one down there. We have just announced a couple weeks ago we have coming our Technology Planning Summer Camp, which is coming up in August 22nd and 23rd, doing it in 4 locations across the state simultaneously. So you can go in here on our website. This is going to be a 2-day event where we have speakers talking about, you can go to the agenda, technology planning, why you would do it, tools to use it in your library, resources to keep up with your technology, that kind of thing. It's available to all librarians in the state to apply to attend if you want to. Kind of geared towards public libraries for a lot of what we have in there, however. So read the session descriptions and who we have coming and what it's going to be all about. And we just wanted to promote it to you to let you know that it's been announced. It's out there. Check out the website. We will link to it. And register and sign up for one of our 4 locations. We are doing it in Lincoln, Norfolk, North Platte, and Scotts Bluff. So you'll have multiple places you can, someplace, it should be somewhere near you that you can get to.
And wonderful, thought-provoking, amazing speakers.
Oh, yeah, what? Because your name's up
well,
there.
and you, and other people.
There are other people besides us. This is being done as part of our, with money funded, is being funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So thank you to them for that. Related to the grant that we have for a VTOP grant for libraries in the state to get computers and technology. And this is related to that, but is available to all libraries in the state who might want to attend. So that's that. And that will wrap it up for today. We did run a little long. About by 5 minutes.
Okay.
We hope you'll join us next week when our topic for NCompass Live is the voice of the customer, designing library services to meet your expectations. We have 3 staff speakers coming from Bellevue University. We're going to talk about identifying the expectations of your users and a change to how you run things, possibly doing it there. So they should be very interesting. That'll be our session next week. And as I said earlier at the beginning, last week's session that was on genre headings didn't happen, is rescheduled for 2 weeks from today on August 3rd. So that'll be the one after that. Just another reminder of that. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
I think that's it. Like I said, if you have any questions, contact us. Go to the Tech Planning Summer Camp website and sign up. Go to the Library Camp Kansas website and see what went on there, and look for an unconference near you, or hold one.
Yes, even better.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Bye.